Hello and welcome to We Got a podcast about Dragon Ball from A to Z. From Earth to Namek to Sadala, we cover it all. My name is Randy.
And I'm Doug.
We're the world's strongest under the heavens duo here every other week to talk your ear off about fights, goofs, and everything else in the Dragon Ball cosmos. But guess what? It doesn't stop at a duo this week. We're joined by the man, the myth, the legend himself, AnimeAjay. How you doing, man?
Yeah, good. I've not been on a podcast in a really long time. So I've not done YouTube videos in ages. So I feel like I've lost the entertainer persona or voice.
I feel like that every week, so don't even worry about it.
Yeah. So I'm just I'm here. I'm a guy now. I don't do things.
You're the Gohan who's lost the ability to turn Super Saiyan for no reason.
Yeah. I mean, I've got the green tracksuit on right now. Yeah. I'm all prepped up and ready for this role.
We didn't even ask you to wear that. You just wear that on your own choice.
Yeah.
Well, you know how I do.
I appreciate the enthusiasm. Doug, normally we talk about what's new with us. Doug, what's new with you?
Just about to get ready for a trip that I'm going to with a bunch of friends up to a Deep Creek Lake, which is just kind of like a cabin area in the north where it snows all the time. So I'm excited for that.
Nice.
How about you?
So my goal in 2021 was I'm gonna play one of these dang Yakuza games, dang it, because everybody loves them and I've never tried it.
Yeah, they're so good.
So I finally started Yakuza Kiwami. I'm about 7 hours in on chapter 5, and I'm hooked. The first little bit didn't really grab me, but then once I started to unlock some more abilities, combat-wise, okay, now we're
all about the side quests too, man. It's just how wacky and fun the side quests can be. I can get 7 hours just going to the batting cages.
Oh yeah, I've heard of the batting cages. I haven't been there yet.
Mm-hmm.
I did do some the remote control race car stuff.
That's actually my least favorite. I just looked at a walkthrough for that. I'm not gonna sit here and try and decipher what these cars do and their stats.
That's fair. I don't know. It was the first thing I walked into. I'm like, all right, we'll see what this is all about, and it was kind of fun.
But it's all fun and charming, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I know that you're not usually on the show, so there's, everything that you do is new to us, but what have you been up to, AJ?
I made a grave mistake in July. Uh-oh. I hopped back into Final Fantasy XIV, the MMO. When I say hopped back into, I mean got into properly. I first played that back when it came out and barely touched it, and tried little bits here and there over the years to try and get into it, and it just never really clicked for me. But then I don't know, just come July I was I'm going to give it an honest go. I know there's the new expansion coming out soon, let's give it a try, and it clicked this time, and I've played 400 hours since then, and
nice.
All I think about is Final Fantasy, and everything hurts, and I don't know what reality is anymore. It's wild. I got weirdly into the role play side of things. Last night I ended up in a weird nightclub that had strip rooms in it that you could pay. It was very weird. I mean, I must say I was not involved in that. I just noticed it. Of course,
it happened around you, not
yes, exactly
to you.
So yeah, it's been weird discovering the bizarre side of MMOs.
Yeah,
I
didn't even get that deep, but that's totally makes sense that it can.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then in real life, what a thing.
What is
yeah, since moving away from YouTube, I'm still involved with YouTube, but behind the scenes now. If you know the YouTuber Totally Not Mark,
oh yeah,
I now work for him full time, and I guess I handle his sponsorship stuff. So if you ever see this video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends, whatever, then that was me.
Okay.
I wrote the thing and organized the
Do you also do thumbnails and things like that too?
Yeah, so the actual artwork on the thumbnail will either be Mark's own work or it will be Trev, another community artist. I tend to do the actual layout and typography and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and just general assistance across the channel.
Those videos impress me to no end. I always go into it thinking, I might give this a watch, and I end up living off of his words as he's speaking. I'm oh my god, yes, totally, you're nailing it.
I'll just watch one, but then oops, now I've watched 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Catch back up.
He's an insanely hard worker, and it's very interesting to see the amount of work that goes into a channel that size. I think it definitely highlighted for me that like I don't have the right personality type, I think, to stick with something like that so consistently. Like you have to have like such a regime.
I don't either.
You don't have someone to tell you what to do.
Yeah. It's like I tried dabbling in it, but it's like nope. I have like motivation to make a video once every 6 months, and that's not enough for YouTube to be relevant.
No, for sure.
Awesome. Well, that's cool. I'm happy to hear that. I'm kind of scared. I do want to jump into Final Fantasy XIV again myself. I did it a number of years ago. Played with just one friend, and I played until we got to the point where we couldn't do everything, just the two of us. And then I spent like an hour looking for another player to join a seasonal event. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore.
That's the Final Fantasy that Mike keeps telling everyone to hop on, right? He's like, let's play Final Fantasy XIV every chance he gets, right?
Yeah. I should have kept ignoring him, but
now your life
here I am.
Changed forever. Oh, well, that's cool. I'd love to be talking more about Final Fantasy XIV and see if I can be tricked by its siren song. But I think that we need to talk about what we're here to talk about this time, which is going to be our next in our movie review lineup, which is Dragon Ball Z Fukatsu no F, or Resurrection F. Doug, we both just watched this movie last night, so why don't you tell me what this movie is all about?
Let's see. The Earth is finally at peace, but remnants of Frieza's forces have arrived to revive him with the Dragon Balls. And so, the worst wish in the history of the universe is granted. And Frieza, plotting his revenge against the Saiyans, is revived at last.
Heck yeah. So, as context, this movie came out April 18th, I was going to say 2005, but no, it's more recent. 2015, which was just a little over 2 years after Battle of Gods came out and just months before Dragon Ball Super's big premiere. And this is a movie directed by Tadayoshi Yamamuro, however you want to feel about him.
Did we know that Super was coming out at this time?
I can't remember if I want to say we did know in April, so that would put it at the right time. Mm-hmm. And we were waiting, like, we had gotten an announcement, and we'd got a logo, but we didn't have any, like, art. But they were like, it's coming out this summer, and we're like, that's a little soon.
That freaking logo, that image of, like, Goku swimming with his arms, like, all wacky. Yeah. It's all coming back now.
Oh, man, what strange times. But we watched a little bit of a special version of this movie rather than little bit,
a lot of it.
Which is the supercut done by AnimeAjay himself. Version 2 of such was released July 22nd, 2016. 5 long years it's been, man. Do you remember working on this?
Yeah, I remember quite a lot of it because it just kind of consumed everything, which it shouldn't have done because like I was in university at the time. And it was my final year. And so it's like the most hectic year. And yet, despite that, I decided, why not do work and just
take on the biggest project
do a fan edit of a film for some reason.
Yeah. Of a film you're not even not much of a fan of.
Well, so this is the bizarre thing, right? Like, it's so weird to look back on Resurrection F and like how I feel about it now compared to what it was like at the time. Like the hype for me for Resurrection F was huge. Like I went to Japan to see Resurrection F.
Oh shit!
It was weird comparing like the types of audiences because I also saw it again.
Yeah.
Back in the UK, like the Japanese audience, like it just come out, but it was just silence, like no reaction to anything.
Oh really?
You come back to the UK and everyone's just like, yeah, or like laughing, like everything. Like it's just such a cultural difference. Yeah, I think so.
That's cool.
Because it was exactly the same with Broly, which I also got to see in Japan. Like just, again, totally the same. Just like total silence throughout all of Broly. And then I actually saw Broly at the UK premiere here in Leicester Square. And yeah, that was just a totally different experience. Like that was just fans wild.
Yeah. Same here in America. Like I think I'd love that experience more. Just everyone.
The energy in the room.
Yeah, the energy in the room and gushing out. It's great.
Yeah, it's funny because like I'm someone who is like I just need silence in the cinema. Like I'm the kind of person who like if you start rustling next to me, I like just death glare. just don't even start. And yeah, like when it comes to Dragon Ball films, I just kind of like that atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's fun.
But no, I get it, because I went to go see Eternals last week, and I decided to go to a theater, where they serve food to you while you watch the movie, which I'm thinking,
Sure.
yeah, this is perfect. Like, food and movie, that sounds great. But it's like every 10 or 5 minutes, there's always someone walking by, waiters, and, just talking, like, what do you want to eat? What do you want this? Oh, you want some of this? And it's just like, okay, this is way more distracting it's obviously more distracting than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, that would drive me crazy.
Yeah, I don't think I'll do it again. It was a good idea and concept, but yeah, I was like, forgot that little one part where talking has to happen.
See, I love my Alamo Draft House because they will serve food the whole time, but it's very much a silence thing. They just have order cards, and you write what you want, and you just put it on like the end of the table, and they'll like sneak by silently, grab it, and then walk away.
Oh,
and then
really?
just
No,
go get what you want.
My theater was like a customer just like, oh, what do you have to drink? It's like, oh, well, we got a Sprite and you got this. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that would take me out of it. I wouldn't want to do that either. It's
luckily it was just Eternals, so it wasn't a big miss.
little distractions I don't like, but if it's something like, having that energy in the room of everybody like cheering at appropriate moments, I think that has a really nice effect.
Right. If it's a baby crying, I'm like, shut that baby up.
I want to talk about kind of how this movie unfolds. So I took some notes here, and I wanted to bring up that it starts very strongly by centering the movie on Vegeta, which is interesting.
That. Yeah.
Because, we've seen it before, so we know kind of like how the end fight goes. But seeing that at the start, I was really excited because I'm like, oh, cool, we're going to give Vegeta more of a spotlight. I'm a fan of the guy. I think that he deserves having some more screen time.
I think without knowing, like in retrospect, if you didn't know that Vegeta is basically the big twist at the end, you'd be wondering, like, why is there so much attention on Vegeta right now in the beginning of this movie? But it totally makes sense looking back on it,
Yeah, that was like my thought process behind it. I always felt like the Vegeta Blue stuff, it's cool the first time you see it. Mm-hmm. But then I felt like once the spectacle wears off, it's just kind of there.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, right, okay. How did this come about?
How and
do we
why?
Really see much? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, like you only ever really see Goku and Vegeta sparring a little bit with Whis, and that's kind of it. And so with the edit, I thought, well, I really like what the Super TV series did, which is to have Vegeta kind of upset that Goku has kind of surpassed him a little bit with this whole God stuff. I love the idea of him being upset about that and deciding to go and do something about it. Like of its own, volition. Like that's a very Vegeta thing.
It's good on Super to include that kind of stuff in there in the first place.
Yeah, like I always felt like those little, they're not filler, but additions to the story were some of Super's strongest moments. So to be able to weave in some of that stuff was really exciting. And I love that stuff, to see him reacting to something from Battle of Gods and then going and training and building up to something that ultimately serves as the climax of the film. I think my goal there was to add more connective tissue than what there originally was, to try and make that big blue reveal feel earned somehow. I don't know that it necessarily succeeds in that, because there's only so much you can do. But I think at the very least, there's a little bit more to his training now than just I'm punching Whis a little bit. Like,
yeah, a lot of it left to interpretation. Like, just like, oh, I guess this must have happened.
Right, you don't have to fill it in yourself. And I do like that sort of natural bridge between the previous movie and what's going to be happening in this one, rather than it just being their own segmented things, and they'll reference each other, but it's kind of like, oh, well, we're not going to naturally explain how the events of the last movie led into this one. I really appreciated that. And then also, having more time with Vegeta being his goofy self, where he's kind of got to, talk Whis into letting him come along, and, the instant ramen and things like that. Changing Beerus's sheets. There's so much from this portion of Super that I watched once and I never watched again, and it's been 5-6 years. It's like I forgot all about this, so I was laughing so hard.
I told you, Andy, but I didn't tell AJ that I don't think I've ever seen this part of Super. I think once I heard that it was just going to be a retelling of the movies, I'm like, I don't want to waste my time with this. And so this is my first time actually seeing these scenes at all.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, besides the cooking scene where it's just kind of like just meme to hell that everyone's just going to post screenshots of at the time. Like, I knew that existed, but I've never actually seen it in action. So it was It was.
Did you think? I was just going to say, like, as someone who hadn't seen that, did you think it at least? Does it gel with the rest of the film?
It does.
I
it
feel
really
like it's
does.
very hard to find people who don't.
If it wasn't for
preconceptions about
the
it.
obvious like animation change where it goes from like movie quality to TV quality, I don't think I would have noticed like, oh, this is definitely a new scene. It would have just flowed naturally. So you did a great job with that.
Okay, that's good to hear.
I took a note here from during that training of, do we think that Whis is secretly training Vegeta to be a better husband and that Bulma is in on it?
Yeah. He's having him like change sheets and like do everything. Like he's got him on a short leash, and that's Bulma specifically was angry at Vegeta in the beginning for like being dirty after training and like you just mess up our room all the time. And then cut to this part of the movie where he's cleaning up Beerus's room. Just seems too intentional.
I mean, that's canon now. That's how that.
Yeah.
That is perfect.
Like this isn't even part of training to become a god of destruction. It's just literally just to make Bulma happy.
My next note here, this isn't so much about the edit from the supercut, but how do we feel about Krillin becoming a cop? Like, does that seem like a normal career choice for this man, or is it out of nowhere and just something to do?
I think in like Dragon Ball's dream world where the police are all lovely. That makes sense. It's he's fighting for justice. He's Mr. Earthling.
It always just felt weird to
sense.
have him as a cop and just have him. I don't know. I guess taking orders from someone in that aspect. I don't know. I kind of felt like he should have done like a Great Saiyaman kind of role, but I don't know.
Yeah, that would have also worked.
Mm-hmm.
I think thinking about that way, where it is sort of doing the right thing, serving justice, but not going overboard and being a costume superhero, like
not being
Gohan
a vigilante and like actually like, obeying by the law as well.
Oh man, what if he became like a crazy vigilante, like gritty Batman, and then Great Saiyaman was like, "Hey, you're doing things." I mean, that's totally wrong, but that would just be a dumb
if he was
thing.
like Punisher, just like,
yeah, sure, why not?
I decide who lives and dies. Like, no, Krillin.
I might be misremembering this correctly, but also I might be the only one. AJ, did you play Kakarot?
I played up to Raditz.
Hey, me
and
too.
quit. I just totally dropped it. This is not for me.
That's fair. I just had one random note because I recently played through the DLC for Resurrection F, and in the movie, they bring up that Frieza's coming in the landing outside of North City. So I wrote, I'm pretty sure in Kakarot he lands outside of West City, so that's a cinema sin, if anything I've ever seen, either for the movie or for the game.
Right.
Because I believe it's just right outside of West City where Bulma's house and stuff is. But I was like, that's an interesting thing.
Does Frieza destroy that town in the game?
No. They're not going to go into that in-depth stuff. It was just kind of like, I'm here, here's a legion of little bad guys you have to fight like 100 at a time, and then you can fight Frieza before training up to like level 250 or whatever it was. It was ridiculous, but just a little thing there, and I wasn't sure if anybody else had played that or if I just remembered it entirely wrong.
Spent $60 on that game, so excited, then I'm like, this doesn't grab me at all. I just completely dropped it.
I think I had a bit more of a motivation to play it because I was talking with Mike and Ken, Detective X, about doing a Kanzenshu podcast about Kakarot. And I'm like, I just picked it up. Let me play through it real quick before we talk about it. So I had just, took a week and rushed through the whole thing. And now
you have to be Kakarot. You have to be a Kakarot expert if you're going to get on a podcast with Ken, otherwise known as Kakarot's biggest fan.
Yeah.
Maybe only fan, biggest fan, at least.
maybe he can convince me to continue playing it.
If anybody can, he can, because then they were talking about revisiting it to talk about the DLC, and I'm like, I haven't even picked up the season pass. I better go do that. And blaze through everything except for the new Trunk stuff. I got to that, and I'm like, I'm going to take a little break, and then I've played like 3 other games.
Man.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm sure we'll get to it eventually, but holidays and stuff kind of throw everything in to be difficult. Talking more about like how this fight unfolds, we have a neat thing where we get to have a bunch of like the tertiary characters show up and kind of get their own fights. Even Roshi is there.
Which I kept saying, why are you here, Roshi? What is this?
I'm not sure if they had a quota. They needed to fill out the rest of the movie, and they're like, we got to bring in somebody else. I'm like,
like I was telling you in Battle of Gods, they're kind of giving him the Captain America like role in these movies where he's not necessarily the strongest, but he's giving commands. I guess because he's the most elderly and wise and knows how to battle properly. Because he's like giving directions, like, oh, let's split up, or let's attack, or all this kind of stuff. And that's kind of interesting in of itself. But I don't know. It's always nice to see Roshi though. So
I think that might be it. You know, you've got to, instead of making a new character, we got to have somebody who's going to be calling the shots. Well, it might as well be the wizened old sage. I mean, granted, he's not been that character.
Yeah, and like he's superiorly outclassed in just like he doesn't know how to fight in the sky with like Super Saiyans and all this kind of stuff. If it was like humans, yeah, but I don't know. You know what I mean?
Tenshinhan shows up and is even like, I didn't bring Yamcha or Chaozu. Like Chaozu, I get, but come on,
come on, I'm gonna throw Yamcha a bone here.
Come on, he deserves it. He's been through so much. Give the guy a win.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't make masses of sense. I think I will say that I appreciate it, at least. Like it is nice to see those characters again doing something.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I'm slightly veering off topic, but I think it's interesting that a lot of the details in that come from Yamamoto's storyboard, because I don't know if either of you have ever read Toriyama's script. Herms translated it a while ago. I don't know if you ever posted it anywhere, but it's interesting to see that like the script is just like, and a big battle begins with these guys, and then there's like, and he writes a little bit more dialogue, and it's like, and then Goku and Frieza have a fight, and so like there's so little detail there that you have someone you have like the production staff filling it in, which I think is like a blessing and a curse, really.
Yeah,
which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point.
I think the thing with it though is that this movie is kind of like a more serious tone, whereas say the 2008 special was so fun and wacky. I didn't even question why these characters are fighting and like scaling of power or whatever. But with this movie being taken kind of seriously in that aspect, it did seem weird to have Roshi in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
for sure.
And I think, going off of that script, that it seems very vague and just like, then there's a big fight, then Goku and Vegeta or Frieza have a fight. It's nice to kind of have some more freedom to do what you want, but at the same time, it might have been good to have some restraints, just so that way you have something to work off of instead of, I don't know, just kind of throwing anything at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, and I'm always a perpetuator for like, whatever's more fun, just do it in this series. I don't care really about power scaling, all that kind of stuff, but it did make you kind of like scratch your head and be like, this doesn't really make too much sense, but...
Before we get to Goku and Vegeta's fight, I wanted to ask AJ about your choices for how things go in terms of like letting them know that things are going on, because the movie and the TV series are kind of different in that in the movie, everybody kind of like charges up to let Goku know to hone in on that ki, versus in the TV show, I believe it's like Gohan like pushing it himself to the limit to kind of raise his ki high enough to be noticed, and it's kind of like a personal sacrifice. It's been a long time. I just remember a couple of shots, but could you speak to your choices for what you kept in this from the film versus the TV show for that?
Yeah, so like this portion in the TV series gets really wacky for some reason. Like you have Ginyu,
right?
And Ginyu Frog are there, and Taguma is it Taguma?
Yeah, Taguma gets kind of taken.
I was
over by
confused. Let's see. Like he's still alive, and there's like a whole like Gohan having an extended moment, which you then get this like reversal of Piccolo sacrificing himself. I think Gohan sacrifices himself, kind of like the
Nappa thing.
Saiyan arc. Yep. There was just so much going on there that I just was like, I don't massively love this, but two, it's so convoluted and drawn out and pulling from all different things, like, Z filler and stuff. I was like, no. We'll just, what's there is fine. Like, I think as far as the narrative goes, like most of my issues with it come from how brisk the beginning of the film is. Like, I think if you look at it, I don't know that I touched much once the action begins. I think the majority of my changes are just additions early on. And then just some tiny little things for pacing or general direction, I guess, during the fight. I was largely okay with that bit. I remember having a really tough time with trying to work in the fact that Togama was technically still alive in my version, because I remember one of the big complaints was that Freeza was suddenly super powerful, and all we ever got in the original film was just like a line like, "And I did some training." The end. Like that was it. Whereas the TV series was essentially still, "I'm just going to train." That's it. But there was at least like maybe like a 10-second flashback of Freeza just like abusing the shit out of
paralyzing him and
sending him to the rejuvenator for tomorrow.
Which like it's 10 seconds if that. But I just like that it gives the audience some insight into what he did. Like, what did you do during this time to achieve something like that? And so I tried to work that in. But of course, then how do I then kill Togama later if I'm not using any of that stuff with like the Ginyu and all this madness that I just didn't want to include? And so I had to it's a little bit awkward. I essentially created like this mini flashback when Frieza's talking about training, I believe, and I think I cut to like Togama being blown up, which was supposed to I don't know if this worked. I think some people didn't like it, but it's supposed to imply that he died during the training. The actual scene that I used, I'm fairly sure I just stole his actual death scene from Super and just like slightly changed it up so it seemed a bit more fitting for the setting. But yeah,
I don't think I noticed him. I remember the flashback, but wait, so you're saying that wasn't a flashback in Super?
So what I'm saying is there's like the flashback of him being beaten up on a different planet, of him training.
Yeah.
And then you never get any insight into what happens to him. And so later on, when Freeza is talking to Goku and not Goku, it was Goku? No, I think he was just talking to Piccolo and the gang and Gohan and whatnot. He's talking about how he trained, I think. And to try and explain Togama's absence, I created this little like it's just a flash. It's like a flash.
Right,
of
it's like a
Togama
sepia
dying.
tone sort of thing to show like this is what happened.
Yeah, like I think in retrospect, I probably could have gotten away with nothing, because I think like with the way the film introduces that character, he's just kind of nothing. Like you don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I necessarily needed to show him or come up with a reason for him not being there for the fight. But I think because I had the film in the back of my head, or the TV series in the back of my head, I just thought people will pick up on that. They know who that character is. If I don't somehow get rid of him, show him being dispatched, then it will be considered a continuity error, perhaps. So yeah, I just remember agonizing over that, and I don't love the solution. But
well, someone who didn't like watch Super, and I didn't know that Togama, like I forgot that he died in early on in the movie, but not in the series. It didn't really like stand out to me. Oh, but it was that 10-second flash where I'm just skimming the movie now, and I came across it. Yeah, that did actually stand out to me. Actually, I'm sorry, I take it all back. I was like, oh, that's so cool. But that was all that I got out of it. So no, that made sense. That made sense for me. That resonated with me.
Yeah, as somebody who's watched both versions, I was like, I thought that was a pretty cool way to handle it without going into the whole Ginyu stuff, and giving him more of something to do in the movie without just being murdered right as soon as Frieza gets revived.
Yeah.
It was a happy medium. You worked with what you
flashback, had. Yeah, that flashback, the one of those two training, I just have like trauma from editing that. You'll notice it if you watch with headphones. It may even be clear with speakers, but the audio is like not very good during that section, because I had to like... The way that it took place in the original series had this like really intense like electric music over it. And of course, the TV series is only stereo. Like I can't separate the background music from the voices cleanly. And so I had to do this like weird filtering where I think I had to like overlay the Super soundtrack and then like cancel it out, like the signals cancel out something. Anyway, the results were okay, but it took so long to get something that just didn't sound like a tin can. It was painful.
I was gonna say, because we were mentioning after watching it that like, did he have to edit audio with that whole thing? Because it all just seemed very natural.
Yeah, we were watching with, at least for me, I had headphones on, but we also had the movie turned down a little bit because we were in a Discord call talking to each other while we were watching it. So I usually have the movie on quieter than what Doug is.
Sure.
But yeah, so I didn't notice any peculiarities, but I'm sure that if, you're listening for it or you've got a sort of a trained ear, it might be a bit more noticeable. But I would say you got away with it, at least for me.
Oh, that's good. Because, the audio gave me so much trouble because the dynamic range for the movie is huge. Like, it's massive because obviously it's meant for a theater, whereas the TV series stuff is really squashed. And so the music is often fairly loud compared to everything else. I just can't control any of that. And so trying to make those two blend was really hard. And I was so concerned that people would be having to, like, turn up and down the volume over and over again.
I think with your skill level though in editing, because you've done it before, you've done editing before, that you have an ear for that. Whereas I've seen like countless of fan projects that are just kind of atrocious, for lack of a better word, that like singing audio, like you can pick up, they just downloaded the Dragon Ball Z sound pack from searching Google and then threw it in there without balancing audio.
I also wanted, since we're talking about audio, I have a note in here. Did you redo some sound effects using like older Z libraries rather than the current Super stuff?
I think I did for during the Goku versus Freeza fight when I cut to the Naoki Tate scene. I redid the entire audio for that. That was mute originally. I think I got all of Arai's sound library and totally did that from scratch.
The thing that stuck out to me especially is like when Vegeta is charging up his attack to when he thinks he's going to beat Frieza is sort of like this specific key sound that I think only shows up like in the Boo arc of things. It's got like, I don't know, it sounds like a water drop like on something first before then there's like a ramp up. I don't know how exactly to explain it, but I'm like, this feels very Boo era, and I don't think they use this sort of stuff in Super. So I'm like, did AJ change out the sound effects, which I appreciated. I love those sound effects.
I don't remember specifically, but I do know that there was at least one section which I think it's when Goku and Frieza have just transformed and they charge at each other and a fight begins. And I think in the original film, it turns into CG and it's really ugly, but also this like really weirdly like upbeat synthy track plays that just felt so tonally inappropriate that I just gutted it and put in like a proper action track, because I'm like, they've just transformed into the like proper form, this is supposed to be the big clash. Like, why are you playing like you're jamming out like on stage somewhere? Like, what is this?
Well, that's Sumitomo for you sometimes. So
yeah, that was very strange.
That machine reminds me of the whole F track from Maximum the Hormone, which just didn't. It's a great song that I listened to outside of Dragon Ball, but in the movie, it just seems so out of place.
You mean like the vocal version or the?
I think maybe both, but more so the vocal version in the beginning when Frieza's first resurrected.
I felt like maybe it should have been like the full vocal version should have been used more of a moment of Frieza doing some more kick-ass stuff, like, having the upper hand on Goku during the beginning parts of their fight. But I don't have too many problems with it otherwise. Did you consider doing any changes to either of those versions of the track when you were working on this version, AJ?
No, I don't think so. I never massively minded it that much. I think it's one of those songs that is very big and could probably be better used during an action scene rather than what is a fairly tame rejuvenation scene.
Yeah, exactly. Like if they switched it, maybe it would have been a lot better in my eyes.
Yeah, but I never really thought about changing it too much. I think because I think the direction for this film is just all over the place. Like it can't decide on a tone. It never feels big. It just ebbs all over the place. I just thought like there is only so much I can do. I think like I will just focus primarily on this initial bit and ironing out little nitpicks here and there. Like I think I know I'm jumping around. You have this nice order to like go through the film, and I'm just like jumping all over the place. There's the 1-inch punch bit,
yes, which
is a great moment. But in the original film, the 1-inch punch happens, and it cuts to Beerus and Whis arguing over a strawberry. Like just the momentum just dies.
Yeah,
like that's supposed to be such a hype moment. And the weird thing is, it's like it cuts to the strawberry comedy and then back to the action. And like there was no rhyme or reason for that scene to be there. And so I just moved it, got rid of it. and it flows. Like, when it's, and this is slightly arrogant to say, but it feels like with it gone, that scene flows how it was meant to flow. Like, at least to me.
Yeah, I think maybe they just kind of wanted to lean towards the comedy aspect of it, but the comedy just kind of misses for non-Japanese audiences, I think.
Like, they got so far and they're like, oh man, we've missed our comedy quota for these last 20 minutes. We got to throw something. Just throw it right there.
We got to show these wacky new super beings and how much they love food. Remember that? It's hilarious, right? That's going to be their whole character from now on. They just love food.
It's just bizarre.
Yeah.
I don't want to come across like I dislike the comedy or don't think it should be in the film, but I just think the placement of it just doesn't make sense sometimes.
Yeah.
One other thing, because we do have a difference between another big moment in this movie is Goku getting shot.
Oh yeah,
which super changed a good bit. I assume from people not being able to stop talking about how.
Do you think they took that like backlash, like from people online, like, all right, let's tone him down to regular base form and then shoot him?
Yeah, that was always my impression. I mean, personally, those kind of things I don't really think about too much. I understand why people do, and I so respect that. Like, I so understand why people can watch the Super TV series and see like Blue Goku go toe to toe with Krillin and be like, sorry, what? And I'll watch it and be like, okay, whatever. Like, maybe he's holding back, whatever. Like, I just don't. It doesn't faze me. But I understand why those things can be an issue and why they are important to an extent. And so when it came to the ray gun scene, it just seemed like an obvious and easy choice. Super had already done it. People responded well to it, so why not? Yeah,
because I'm kind of in that camp of like, I'm not bothered either way, because throughout the entire series, we've been shown if you're not expecting something, somebody who is much weaker can still catch you by surprise.
That was the whole thing we was talking about in the beginning too. Like, that's
right.
Goes with the theme of the whole movie.
But I'm also not against, making it be a bit more believable of like a single non-powerful person's laser ray gun being able to take down base form Goku rather than Blue.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, it kind of gives like Sorbet like more of a like, this is your chance to shoot him now. Like, do it now. Now's the time.
Right, a more calculated choice of when to do it versus just kind of when he did it. This is more of a thought on the movie itself. How do we feel about Whis being able to turn back time with no apparent sacrifice needed or trade-off to do such a thing? Does it kill the tension of the film? Is it what was needed? What are your thoughts on this?
I think it kills the tension of the film, and I think it's also just a terrible thing to bring into a franchise with a character that is staying around. I understand that there's this caveat of, I'm an angel. I don't interfere with such and such, but you do, because we've seen you do.
Yeah.
And, it's clearly not a particularly hard law. Well, at least until, I was going to say until Mayris came about. Well, anyway, I know you're not caught up on the manga, so I'll,
a little bit.
I'll skip that. But, yes. I don't know that it was necessarily the best idea.
Because it's bad enough with
something
them introducing like Zeno. Was that his name? Zeno, the little dude in the Trunks story arc, where he can just solve everything because Goku has a button to call him or whatever, but he doesn't stick around that much. He's still in his own world. But with Whis being around so often, it is kind of that, there's no tension anymore for anything they do.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, and I think that's just one of those, like, we're stuck between the end of the Buu arc and the end of the series, and so nothing dramatically terrible can happen.
Right.
Again, like you mentioned it, we saw it at the Future Trunks arc, we saw it at the end of the Tournament of Power, we saw it at the end of this. I guess we technically saw it at the end of Battle of Gods, where, the world should have been destroyed, but, Beerus was like, nope, which I'm fine with. I think narratively that makes sense. But I'm just saying it's like another example of those things where, like, big, terrible things just can't happen because we know where this story goes. And if something bad does happen, it's happening somewhere else, like a different timeline. I do think that's an unfortunate reality of where the series is set, and I'd love to see us move past it.
Yeah.
But, we're still stuck.
I don't think it bothered me too much when I first saw it. It was just when everyone kind of brought it up. It's just like, yeah, that does kind of suck that it's kind of there. I doubt that they'll ever use that again. Like, that's just a one-off, let's solve this story. But it's like the time turner thing in Harry Potter. Like, you have this thing to control time, and you never use it again. people are going to ask questions.
You've made this solution to all problems, and now you have to figure out a way to not include it later on because people are just going to bring it up.
Cursed child comes about and it comes back, and it's the worst fucking thing ever.
You either waste half your movie explaining why you can't use it, or you just completely ignore it.
I want to bring up some other things that happen at the end here that if I'm remembering correctly, were TV series stuff only, which is the Earth, getting blown up, and we get to see the people on the planet as this destruction is happening, which I think adds much more of an emotional weight to that rather than just, CG planet go boom.
No, that was the exact thought process. I wasn't just being morbid. You have to watch these people die. I was so desperate to pull any sort of emotion out of it. Like I think, I will always enjoy Hiromi amazing Papa and Mama delivery line, like when she's upset. Like I think that's fantastic. But I thought it was a great decision to show how terrifying something like that can be.
Yeah, right. It really grounds it and makes it real.
Yeah, like I love that, and so I thought that's really easy to include. Let's do it, and maybe that adds more weight to the reactions that then happen.
I think it definitely does, because when I think back, I'm thinking of Star Wars, when the first movie, when they blow up Princess
Alderaan.
Yeah, Alderaan. They blow up that whole planet. You're kind of like, oh, that sucks. The whole planet's gone. It doesn't really hit in your head. Oh, there's like billions of lives on there. But if they just showed a few, like they did in Resurrection F, it just it makes it more grounded and relatable.
Yeah. God, what Star Wars thing wasn't there a recent Star Wars thing that showed the perspective?
There's no recent Star Wars things. There's no Star Wars recent stuff.
Force Awakens, when Starkiller Base shoots at all those planets, we get a cut to some people that are there watching other planets getting blown up, and then the big red beam coming straight towards them.
Right, yeah. I just remember thinking, that's very effective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that happened in Super to try and give it some more emotional weight to it. But then we have the relief of that, which is after Frieza and everything is taken care of, going back and Gohan coming home to Videl and stuff. Man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a great moment.
Yeah, that was one of the hardest things to edit, actually.
Oh.
And I had to get outside help with it because Gohan is shot full of holes in the TV series. That scene where he runs home to Videl, he is covered in battle damage. He's got a hole through his heart. He's fucked up.
Oh, wow.
So I asked a friend who does a lot of VFX stuff, like After Effects, to go in there and paint out all of the battle
frame
damage,
by
so
frame.
that he looks, so that he looks like he did, in the rest of the film.
Right.
I just made sure the continuity was good there. So
I think the series itself takes continuity like that into effect as much as you do.
It's very impressive.
Yeah.
So massive thanks to my friend Nick for doing that.
You did a great job. I didn't even notice. That totally fits.
I honestly, it's been so long since I've seen this movie, I forget what even the ending, the everything kind of coming to a close is, and I appreciated scenes like that. Or I believe it's at Bulma's place. They're all kind of having a barbecue sort of thing, and Goku and Vegeta chatting.
Yeah. So the original film, you have Goku come in, blow up Frieza, and then Vegeta's like, "Wow, why did you do that?" And then they explain to him. And then they basically go, "Oh, I guess we should have worked together." Freeze frame ending, roll credits.
Oh,
and I was like, what is that?
Oh my god!
So
he just said screw it and then stopped mid movie.
We're done with the movie.
I just thought there needs to be some sort of denouement, we need to just wrap up this film properly. And so I loved that you had Gohan coming home and being like, "Oh, I'm so glad you guys are safe." I loved the celebration at Bulma's place where you get to joke about Goten and Trunks' absence in my version at least, and obviously Baby Trunks is laughing and not really understanding why they're referencing this other Trunks that he doesn't know, which I thought was great. I love that I'm trying to add connective tissue here, so I love that you then have Gohan apologizing to Piccolo for like letting his training slip and asking him to train. Like, I think that's a nice way to then lead into the TV series. And I don't know if you guys stuck after the credits, but I threw in
with Champa.
a little Marvel style
post-credit scene. Exactly what Randy said.
I was like, I really hope there's a post-credit scene of like Champa and Vados just being sinister, and I'm like, oh, there it is.
Like, here it comes.
I think you're ready to turn it off, and I'm like, no, we gotta wait till after the credits. I gotta see. And you did not let me down. I was like, that's perfect.
Yeah, so I just really wanted to wrap up the film in a way that at least felt more satisfying to me, and in a way that opened up plot threads for the future content. It took a lot of restraint, I think, with some of the editing, because it was a lot longer initially, and a lot of that was to do with me struggling to stitch scenes together. I think you often get in the habit with editing of thinking about actions in real life, like, oh, how does this person get from here to here, or like, how is such and such moving about the frame? Like, you get so caught up on how things function within that 3D space, how it would in the real world. And then I think at some point something clicked with me where I was like, film doesn't function like that. You watch films all the time where, you know, someone grabs their keys off the table and the next cut, like, they're at the end of their driveway. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
Because your brain fills in the gaps.
That's exactly how it was when I was making AMVs way back 10 plus years ago. I thought you needed to do that. So, like, an entire AMV would just be like a one fight scene because I needed to include how they got from this place to this area for this punch. But then later on, I'm like, no, you don't, like you said, that cinema doesn't really work that way. You can just cut to something else and it still flow naturally.
Yeah, like as soon as that clicks, you're like, oh, I'm enlightened.
Yes, I totally get what you mean when you say that. That's awesome.
Yeah, like I think it was. In fact, I know exactly what it was. It was. I was thinking, how does Goku end up at Vegeta's place with Whis? Like, how does he get there? How does he find out about this stuff? And I'm fairly sure I just don't have that in my film because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he just shows up and we don't need that explanation, really. Yeah,
like originally I had that whole thing in there where he's like pestering Whis constantly and like stalking people, trying to find out. Like, I'm fairly sure, I mean, you'll have to remind me if it is. I may have messed up, but I'm fairly sure that's not in my edit, but it was originally.
If coming to a close on it, looking back on it, I know that you probably didn't rewatch it as recently as we did, but thinking back on it at a high level, is there things you would want to do differently now than you did back then if you were handling this sort of project today?
I think I just wouldn't have done it at all. I think my opinion on the film has soured so much that I just can't be bothered.
That's incredible.
I mean, I do actually have a legit example. I will answer your question properly, but I have a similar example of that where because people seem to really enjoy this cut and they were like, are you going to do like a Goku Black movie or something? And I was like, well, I can't do that with a TV series.
Right.
In Japanese because it's all stereo. I can't edit that. It would just be a mess.
Yeah.
It would just be a truncated version that wouldn't feel like a film. It would feel like a montage.
And so when you say that, you mean like the movie version, when you put it into an editing program, it kind of separates the tracks from like vocals to music and audio? Okay.
Yeah. So you'll have like the center channel will be the dialogue, and then the rears are like primarily the soundtrack and stuff. And sometimes you do have to do a little bit of work, but by and large, it's fairly simple.
Gotcha.
Whereas like it's all glued together for TV.
I didn't know that was a thing until like I popped in, because I've always edited like Dragon Ball Z footage just, you know, from the TV. But then when I popped in like The Dark Knight, like Batman or something like that, I'm like, oh, why are there like 5 extra tracks on here? Oh, what, it separates it? Oh, that's so cool. I didn't realize until then.
Yeah, it's so nice for editing. But yeah, because of that, I was like, well, what if I do it with the dub? Because this was, I was thinking this was before the dub had come out for Super, and I was thinking like, well, I liked Kai's dub, I've liked the movie dub, so you know, when they get to the Goku Black arc, I could probably do a Goku Black movie. It would be English only, but it might be a really fun project. And then the dub came out, and English Goku Black was English Goku Black, and I just went, nope, okay, never mind.
You're like, Sean, buddy, come on.
But yeah, to answer your question, I think if I was doing anything differently, it would primarily be quality stuff. The film is 720p using not a great source. I wasn't super clued up on encoding back then, so it's a little bit mushy. So I would have done technical aspects like that a bit better. I think I would have maybe made more effort to, I guess, to try and make some of the animation differences blend a little bit better by reaching out to other artists to maybe help with draw-overs. There is one fan draw-over in the film from Ken, he brought up earlier for Kakarot, which is during Tate's scene, there's a still where Goku's like karate chopped Freeza, which in the original, because it's like one of the most rushed episodes, is just, it's not a great drawing.
Yeah.
It's on screen for a very long time, and people are going to be watching this on a big screen. So I had Ken draw over it, and we like superimposed it together. And you know, it doesn't blend even now. It looks nice because Ken's a good artist, but you know, I think even Ken will be the first to admit that, you know, he doesn't draw, you know, on model. Like, he has his own great style, but it doesn't blend with the rest of the film. So I think were I to do that kind of thing again, it would be just going through and trying to change up that kind of stuff so it just feels a little bit more cohesive. I think I may change. I say this as I'm going to do anything. I think I would have. I think I would have possibly rethought the Taguma like death flash thing. I may have just like removed that entirely and just let it be as it is. I think one thing that it was a stylistic choice that I thought worked, but was almost unanimously disliked, was the Vegeta Blue transformation. You know, in Kung Fu films, you will sometimes see the same thing from like two different angles.
Yes.
I did that with the Vegeta transformation where it's like power up, unveils the thing, power up, unveil. Like, I basically did it twice.
That was the one thing that definitely stuck out to me and just seemed like it didn't mesh very well.
I just took it as like that moment. Well, I guess not really moment. It's over the course of a span of a week in real time. Like Gohan's Super Saiyan 2 transformation. We have a really.
I was thinking of that too.
Where, you know, we've got the song and everything, and then the next episode. Well, I know we showed it in the last episode preview, but now let's do the transformation again.
Now let's close up on his muscles and see them pop up on screen humongously.
Yeah, I think the reason I did it at the time, from memory, was to make editing easier, but I also was like, does this add impact? Yeah, I think based on everyone's reactions, it doesn't. It just looks like a bad edit. So,
like, just so in the moment when you were editing it that you're like, yeah, this does add to it, but then to take a step back, it's like, a little too much.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd trim that out and probably just leave that alone. I think part of my decision for changing up that Vegeta transformation from the original is that I wanted to make it feel bigger, which I don't know that it necessarily needed, maybe. I mean, I do think the direction for that scene is not amazing, and so like after you see it for the first time, the hype diminishes. And so I think when I was trying to edit again, I was like, how can I restore that first experience? And I guess I went too far and it doesn't work.
I think if I remember correctly, I think I took parallels to when Goku first transformed into a Super Saiyan, because it was so quick and just like a one scream and then that's it. I think they were kind of going for that, especially because it was Frieza again that Vegeta was, you know, transforming in front of. Yeah,
I think it's definitely on purpose. I think Yamamuro was like very conscious with the silence he uses. Like, there is no big epic music when Goku goes blue or when Vegeta goes blue. I think he was going for that, like, this is blue, it's tranquil, let's go with that kind of vibe, which I don't think I necessarily understood at the time. And I think now, do I agree with it? Maybe, but either way.
I'd have to watch it again myself too.
That was a misstep.
But, so when the movie, before it came out, did you guys know, how much did you know about the movie? Because I feel like the Vegeta transformation was definitely something I was not expecting, but I think they pushed showing Goku blue so much in trailers that I was like, oh, that's the surprise that you're ruining right now. Like I was at Otakon one year and they showed the trailer for the first time, I intentionally looked down, like, nope, I'm not looking at the screen. I'm looking down. I want to see this fresh. I don't want to see the trailer.
I was just going to say, I remember the Kanzenshi forums at the time, the thread for Resurrection F was awful. people were just it is the most toxic I've ever seen that forum. I think it's because people hated the concepts because they had just been like given this whole new world with Battle of Gods, and it was like, well, you're bringing Freeza back? Why? And so like as more and more details came out, it just got more and more toxic from people who had never seen it.
Right.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring the thread up is because I think it was a week, maybe a few days before the film came out, these tiny little figures popped up. And it was Goku Blue, Vegeta Blue, and Golden Frieza. And everyone was like, what?
Oh, yeah.
And it spoiled that.
So
I knew that.
In Japan, because you went to the Japan showing, they give you like a little book, but it was, I think, like plastic sealed, and it said, do not open this until after the movie. And that's because the book on the front cover shows Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, if I remember correctly.
The one I got was just the regular film poster. But inside, like it just shows everything.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
If anyone had peeked in, they'd know the entire film.
I remember
I'm
buying
fairly
that.
sure there's like shots of him being like shot through the chest and then like
wow.
That must have been why,
the whole shebang.
To kind of like round this off and everything, we kind of know we've kind of spoken about our thoughts about this movie in general. But to ask the final question, do we like the movie? Do we dislike it? AJ, I mean, you've said a lot about it. You've certainly seen it in many more different ways than I think we have.
Yeah.
Do you think it's worthwhile entry into the franchise? If people are wondering if they should watch it or skip it, what would you tell them?
I think you should watch it. I think if you're gonna do something, do it right. But it's a very bland film. At best. I think the hate it gets is both overblown and justified, because I think on one hand, the film itself, it's boring at worst. Like, it's not a terrible film. It's not offensively made or anything.
It's just creative.
Yeah, like you can play a great drinking game with it where you take a shot every time someone gets thrown into rocks. Like the storyboard is boring and repetitive. Like there's nothing
Totally doing
exciting about it. But I think the reason it gets as much hate as it does is because it represents something about a franchise that frustrates a lot of people, and that's that it can't let go of the past. And so, it's bringing back Freeza, and, it's having callbacks here and there to certain things. And I think it's the kind of thing that sort of set a precedent that you then saw constantly throughout Super. Like, oh, now we brought Future Trunks back, or like now we're doing the Tournament of Power, but we're also going to throw in callbacks to like Vegeta's sacrifice or Broly, or now we're doing an actual Broly film, which, I like. But again, it's one of those things where the series just can't leave its past behind.
Yeah.
And I think it really does kick off from that point.
It shows that it really needs to piggyback off of its previous successful storylines to continue going on.
Which I think is a shame and unfortunate, because the new stuff that's there is good. It's just underutilized. I mean, you mentioned the planet at the very start of this, Sadala. Like, we have a whole new world, a whole different, kind of Saiyans to explore, and it's just not done.
Yeah.
Really? Not even in the manga? I was hoping that's what I was missing by not reading it.
No, that's what I've been calling for this whole time. Of like, if we're gonna do Twoper, I don't want Goku and Vegeta. Give me Universe 6 instead. Give me something new, something fresh. That's what I want.
When they do go to Sadala, we're definitely going to get some more hits on our podcast viewings from us mentioning it every single episode.
Doug, what do you say about this film?
No, yeah, I think
like
they just said it the right way, perfectly. Like it was a bland movie that didn't really add much, and I mean, just besides introducing Super Saiyan Blue, which I really wish Super Saiyan God was around more often. It's just kind of like I said previously in the previous movie, that it's short-lived. We just get that form that one time, and then that's basically it.
And they don't even really get to do anything cool with it upon rewatching Battle of Gods. Like, Goku never has an upper hand on anything until after he no longer has the form anymore. So it's kind of like, well, his hair is different, and he's not getting one shot killed. So I guess that's an improvement.
And what I loved about the form is that it was just more skinny, and it was like, yeah, let's go towards this angle more. But then next movie, boom, we're right back into muscles are super huge, and that Super Saiyan style hair.
In retrospect, and I think I had this thought after I watched the movie, because I had heard what people thought, after the Japanese premiere and things, what their interpretation of the film was. So I was somewhat tainted beforehand, but after watching, I'm like, it's not creative and it doesn't move the story forward in something the way like that Battle of Gods did and really opened the world up or introduce us to new stuff. It feels like if you took one of the more classic Z films that's just kind of like, all right, here's our bad guy, here's everybody's individual fight, everybody kind of gets a moment, and then now we're going to do the big fight and it's over. But it's kind of like that, but kind of blown up to be a little bit something more. And I don't have a problem with those old Z films. Whenever I need to hit a Dragon Ball, I'll go do one of those. So this, I'm not offended by it, but I also am not going to seek it out.
It felt like story plot point beat by, it felt like Metal Cooler, that movie. Not how bad the plot was, but just kind of like you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it introduces Frieza again, and it's just with a new form, and they're just fighting, and that's basically all it needs to be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is, but
and I was thinking like, oh yeah, well at least they introduced Frieza back to life so that he can bring back Broly. But I'm like, oh no, he dies in this one, and then he just comes back to life again in Super.
But then we get the great conversation between him and Goku, and like pitching, hey, come and fight on our team. It's good. I'm okay with that where it ends up.
Oh, I was going to mention too that I actually I like the dub of this movie too, where because I think I saw it in theaters here in America. They showed it dubbed, and at this point, I think finally. Took them 30 years, but they've mastered their craft in the dub and did a fine job with it. I didn't have any real complaints. I even had a compliment for it where Vegeta takes over, fighting Frieza at the end, and Goku eats a sensu, and then, like, says bye. In the American dub, Sean Sumwell does, like, it's funny, where he's just kind of like, all right, see ya, Goku, see ya, Vegeta, it's on you, and then, like, laughs as he, like, floats away. That felt, like, that felt right, as opposed to in Masago Nozawa, it's still just kind of, like, bland. It's just like, all right, you take it, Vegeta, see ya.
Yeah, the dub of that film is excellent. I think that is probably their strongest of the three.
Yeah.
I mean, rest his soul, but Chris Ayres is just
yeah.
phenomenal.
Oh
in
yeah,
that
there's
film.
that cheese scene that Vegeta says for the pizza. Like, it's cheese. It's so great.
Yeah, everyone in that film is great. I don't think I have any real issues with it. I think sometimes Shyamalan is perhaps a little bit gruff in Blue, but otherwise, really strong. I think going a little bit off topic, but I like the Battle of Gods dub. I think that's great, and I think the Broly dub, other than He Who Shall Not Be Named,
right,
all excellent.
Yeah. I think I feel the same way. Yeah, like from Battle of the Gods onwards, like the dub is not bad anymore. It's they've mastered their craft.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you get the TV series, which is that's a whole different story.
I didn't give that a watch. I'm like, no, I can barely make it through Super in Japanese. I'm not gonna torment myself to the dub of it.
Make it harder on yourself. Yeah, I can understand that. Okay, so we're gonna take a quick break here, and then we'll come right back and we'll hear what you guys had to say about the movie. Okay, we're back, and this time we get to listen to what you guys had to say about Resurrection F. We had a good number of people, which is nice. So first up, we have the Grim Knight, who tweeted in saying that he felt underutilized pretty much every element. Critical research failure of its own continuity, under lack of consequences and magic redo button in the form of Whis. There's barely anything to like about this movie.
Barely anything to like. Yeah, that's strong, but
it's a strong opinion for sure. I found to like it, and I don't think it deserves an incredible amount of hate. I don't think it deserves a lot of praise either. It's just kind of inoffensive in there.
Like you said earlier, Randy, it's just like another one of the Z movies that it's just there to fight and that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think like the biggest con for me of Battle of Gods and Resurrection F is that neither of them have film production values. Like there is nothing in those films that you didn't see in the Super TV series, a TV series famous for crumbling apart animation-wise. Like, they're consistent art-wise, but there's nothing about them that, if you compare it to any other, big film. I mean, just look at Broly. That's a film.
Exactly.
Oh my god, I'm so excited for that one to watch that one.
But yeah, I'd brought that up. I think when we were watching Battle of Gods, I'm like, this is the chance to be some big and bombastic and impressive, and at no point does it try to do that. I mean, granted, this is also looking back from Broly, so we have a point of comparison and also a change in art style, which is much better.
I think they put all their eggs in the basket of showing off new forms, like Golden Frieza and Super Saiyan Blue, and that's
merchandising the stuff, and then also it being the first movies where Toriyama had a hand in.
Every time I think of Resurrection F, the first thing that pops in my head is not the movie, but it's of the figures that they gave away, where it's like a little tiny, like thumb-sized figure of either Goku or Frieza, and they can take like their skin off or whatever. Like, It's like first form Frieza, where you take the hood off of it and it's final form. And I remember Tanuki Joe took that and put it on Goku's body, and so just Goku's face with first form Frieza's horns. It's hilarious.
It's so funny you mention that. I have that plugged into my PC's microphone jack.
Do you really?
Frieza has been it's been hanging off at that since Res F came.
That's exactly what I think of when I think of this movie. I think of Tanuki Joe and that stupid figure.
It's beautiful.
Oh, that is such a Joe thing to do as well.
It really is.
John Rogers at MagicBox67 says, of all of the Dragon Ball films, this is the one that least lends itself to repeat viewings. Remaking it for TV half a year later didn't help. And once the new factor wears off, you're left with just a handful of charming character interactions. Norihito Sumitomo's music has never been worse, but it's not all bad. Everything prior to Goku and Vegeta versus Frieza is fun, and Jocko's a godsend. And after a lifetime of silly Dragon Ball AF-style playground rumors, it was fun to finally say, there's this new Dragon Ball movie only in Japan, written by Akira Toriyama himself, and have it be true. We didn't talk about Jocko very much in this conversation.
I forgot about mentioning Jocko, the best part of the movie.
Despite the fact that he's the GOAT
yes.
of things. I'm not sure, AJ, how you feel about Jocko, but I know that here in this camp we're very much big fans.
So I love Jocko. I think he's amazing. But putting him in this film is bizarre.
Oh, yeah. It's super.
What? Like, you're alienating so many people. How many people read the Jocko manga?
Right.
Like, even in Japan, how many people read that? Like, I remember when that film came out and everyone was like, who?
Yeah.
Like, only the people who were like really paying attention to what was coming out from Dragon Ball, during its quote unquote off period, they knew who that was.
The only reason why I was so excited to see him was because I had read the manga and I knew that he was a part of that universe, basically. But yeah, it's so bizarre to have him in this movie. It was just to like tie in, maybe like some cross make sales, like buy the manga, which I definitely push for.
We're gonna have some time shenanigans. We did just have this one character that had some time shenanigans. Why not throw him in here too? That way there's at least some connection. Is the only reason I can think of why we had to bring him in for this movie, other than, of course, he was relatively new and we wanted to boost that for probably merchandising sales.
It's like last movie. Hey, remember how we mentioned Vegeta having a brother that you have no idea about? How about now Bulma has a sister that no one knows about?
Yeah. It's strange, but as somebody who did keep up on things, I was like,
it was exciting.
This is why I'm here.
It was
of course,
awesome.
Everybody else being very confused. I guess it helps to weed out which fans you want to talk to. It's like, did you know who Jocko was? No, moving on. I'm kidding. I try not to be that elitist, but it's funny.
I agree about the music comment as well. Like I really liked Sumitomo on Battle of Gods. Like I think that's a great soundtrack for the most part. Obviously the final chapters happened and I almost put my head through a wall listening to that. And then Resurrection F soundtrack is odd. There's some stuff in there that I like. I like that the Freeza motif is developed there. It doesn't really get utilized properly until like the end of Super. But yeah, the rest of it's just very forgettable. I missed all of that big orchestra sound from Battle of Gods. And I don't think that really came back in a big way until Broly, and I think the Broly soundtrack is phenomenal. It's just this weird, like, odd one out in the middle that I don't love that much.
I just had a random thought. What if we had, we'd use the F track by Maximum the Hormone? Why not get those guys to work a bit more and make some more tracks for this. It would be so strange, and it would be like the black sheep of the movies and the series to be like,
still don't think
let's have it entirely different. I don't know. Come on.
I love it. Like I said, I listened to it in my car of that year when that movie came out. I listened to it all the time and loved it, but just in this movie, just didn't seem to fit well.
At least they would have been brave and try something new instead. That's true. But yeah, I feel like Sumitomo did not do a good job, at least for me, until we hit like the Future Trunks arc or the Tournament of Power and onwards. I agree there are some good tracks here and there, but I don't know. There's plenty of more of it that kind of took me out of like, oh, this doesn't feel like a Dragon Ball thing to me. But granted, I'm not a musicologist. I don't know that much about music theory and things, so I could be totally wrong, but that's just my ear guts feelings.
I know from talking to some of the musicologists of the fandom that they always talk about how people will always talk about like how the animators struggled early on with the schedule and stuff, and nobody ever really thinks about how Sumitomo's bad stuff is almost exclusively in things that were rushed. Like you see the final chapters totally rushed. You see the first 2 arcs of Super rushed to death. Resurrection F didn't have a great schedule either. So I wonder if it's that. I know as far as like the music goes, people do point to certain tracks like, he was still making some good stuff in here, which, shows that it wasn't like a case of he just suddenly got good. But I think by and large, I think the majority of people do like have that opinion of just there were promising moments in there, but nothing really clicked properly until the Future Trunks arc.
We've got a long one by a fan of the show, Omega Rockman, who when I put out the tweet, usually I'll put out a tweet asking for thoughts, and he'll come back either right at the end or afterwards. They're like, oh, I missed it, even though I had tweet notifications turned on. So I just tagged him like in the follow-up tweet because I felt bad for the guy. So he says, I feel so called out right now. But so Resurrection F, people seem to not be too kind to it these days. Hate it even. Well, being a guy who actually likes Rise of Skywalker, it comes as no surprise that I actually like this too. Is it as good as Battle of Gods or Broly? Nope, but it's fun to watch. For 90 minutes of punching, it keeps enough of that signature Toriyama humor and characterization to maintain a sense of personality, particularly with Jocko and Frieza. They're great every second they're on screen. The late Chris Ayres' performance single-handedly makes the dub fantastic, showing how much love he put into the character. I miss him terribly. Best actor in any Dragon Ball English dub, period. Finally, while the form isn't fleshed out well, Super Saiyan Blue looks cool. I'm sorry, I occasionally like it when Toei jingles keys and flashy lights in my face.
I so respect that.
Yeah.
I don't respect liking Rise of Skywalker. I draw the line there.
Like a big XL, like Rise of Skywalker.
I mean, I say that I enjoyed The Last Jedi fine enough, but I draw the line at Rise of Skywalker.
Oh my gosh.
He does say, now on to AJ's cut. I remember when the film came out, my buddy Ryoma talked about how the film seemed to lack a middle section. AJ's supercut resolved that very issue, providing the connective tissue to more organically transition into the big battle. It also goes as far as to use the better animation from the show to replace weaker sections of the film, mostly CGI shit, if I remember correctly, even touching up those shots from the show and replacing backgrounds. It's such a well-done cut that I threw together an English dub track using the show and movie audio. It's not perfect by any means, since I was and still am pretty amateur when it comes to audio editing, and I had to change the OST in one scene, but I'm sure it gets the job done.
I was about to say, like, he was one of the big supporters when that first came out. I was about to say he did a whole dub. So
yeah. Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
And he had done something else before, and he had mentioned it, and I had berated him, saying like, you can't just bring up that you did this thing and not link it to it,
let
man.
us know. Yeah, come on.
So he also in that thread posts the link for it specifically so that I don't quote unquote murder him.
This is the dub I definitely would like to check out of the supercut.
Yeah, it's there. So thank you, Omega Rockman. I'm glad that you were able to put that together. A lot of passion to be able to do that. That's very impressive. We have Colton, Manga Maverick at Sniper King 323, who says, "Just gonna say it, the retelling of the Arc and Super was a more interesting watch. Tagoma getting to be a secondary antagonist for a bit instead of just being thrown into space, Ginyu popping up out of nowhere, and even moments like Vegeta and Frieza being snarky and sarcastic with each other added more to the experience for me in Super, even if the production fell to complete shit by the end. Also, Vegeta should have gotten his chance to take out Frieza, and I'll never not be salty about it."
Oh yeah, that whole thing. That is true.
God, that tweet reminded me of the clapping scene.
Yes, I thought of the same thing. You left that out. Why?
I was about to say I would like to go back to, if you asked me if I would change anything, I would devote a good 20 minutes to just Vegeta clapping sarcastically
Wait,
at Freeza.
What clapping scene? What are you talking about?
In episode, I think it's maybe the second half of 24, Vegeta like hovers up into the sky and just like sarcastically claps at Freeza for far too long. Freeza is just like, sorry, what? It's amazing.
It's made for a really great gif of just him smiling and clapping.
The one that people use in conjunction with like the Evangelion congratulations scene.
I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure.
I remember that scene now, yeah. Like, I haven't seen Super, but I've seen that clapping gif. Him smiling.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see if you could just do that. Put that on a loop for 20 minutes in the middle of the movie. I think it would really improve the pacing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I totally see why, like, you didn't include the Ginyu stuff, because it really doesn't add anything to the story. It doesn't give or take anything away. It just kind of doesn't need to be in the movie at all.
Vegeta gets to be 5 for 5 for killing Ginyu Force members. It absolutely matters.
That did feel like a little like satisfactory when you realized that.
Lumranma Yasha says, "I like the movie more than most. I find it fun and funny up until Goku versus Frieza, at which point the rest of the movie feels rote. Frieza carries the film with his petulant Saturday morning cartoon villain energy, and I'm glad the film doesn't take him or itself very seriously. Granted, this, Resurrection F, it's all about Frieza. I do like that Frieza just gets to take center stage for a lot of this, because both Chris Ayres and, I suddenly drew a blank. Ryusei Nakao get to... really take it all their own. It's always a pleasure.
Like, especially Chris Ayres, like we don't get to hear much of him as Frieza besides, like, I think Kai, right? So it's nice to just have a movie where everyone can kind of like take a bite-sized 1.5 hour movie to, see what the new, better Frieza sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is really interesting that people always bring up how once the fighting starts, it gets boring. And I think that's a really good point, and I think there's a reason for that, and it's not just the fact that the action is quite boring. I think it's the way the film is divided up, because I think structurally the film on paper is similar to Broly, where it's like there's a little bit of backstory, and now we're going to do a lot of fighting. In Resurrection F, you have about 35 minutes of backstory, and then a whole hour straight of fighting.
Yeah.
Whereas people talk endlessly about the incredible action in Broly. The fighting doesn't start for an entire hour, and the action is only about 35 minutes long, if that. And yet it doesn't feel that way. And I think that's the main difference.
I think that you could say that about like Dragon Ball itself as a series. People always think that the fighting is what it's what they love about the series, but I think it's the characters that what people actually love. You come back to see the characters, not like in how they react to everything and just their personalities, and the fighting is just a little bonus.
Yeah, the fighting means nothing if there's no context or power behind it.
Oh, yeah.
That's why, like, when I make AMVs, like, mine are not just like the fighting scenes. It's a lot more. I pick like sentimental songs that show the character development and all that kind of stuff, and then sprinkle in some fight scenes here and there. But it's mostly about the characters, because that's what people love about it. They don't realize it, but that's really what it is.
Yeah, and I think this supercut does a lot for that, because it adds in more, stuff before the fight to, give Vegeta more things to do, especially in that beginning, so that his transformation and like utter dominance of Frieza is kind of like, okay, well, here's a nice payoff to all that hard work he put in the beginning. So It kind of feels more, there's more to it. That is all I had from everybody else. So now there's Doug's favorite part, which is random trivia, which I only have 2 for this movie. But what we've done in the past when we've had a guest on is I will read the question, and then both people, like either person will just say ding when they think they have an answer. And of course, each person will get a chance to answer before I take second chances from anybody.
Trivia is my favorite part, but it doesn't mean I'm good at it.
That's fair. That's very fair. So here we go. We'll see how this goes for you. The film's official blog started in an in-character Bulma countdown until the film's release. How many days until release did the countdown start at?
Oh, God.
Jesus. I don't recall this at all. The Bulma countdown?
Right. She's just kind of talking about things in universe and the upcoming movie, but the number of days beforehand is a fun little number that, especially if you know Japanese counting, you might be able to guess why it's special.
Oh.
Was it? Oh, God. My numbers.
What relates to Frieza in this? Nothing. So maybe Goku, which is 5... And
I was going to say it's 5.
4? Each Nissan. That's all I got. Each Nissan.
It's so fun listening to it happening in real time. Nobody's dinged. They're just counting out slowly.
It's 56, isn't it?
Did you say 56?
56 is Goku, right?
That sounds right to me.
I'm gonna take that as your answer. It's incorrect. That would be Goroku.
No. Oh, fuck.
Goroku.
Doug, do you have another answer?
Is it 59?
There we go. Yes,
hey.
Goku. So you guys had the 50 right, which I'm very impressed by.
It's not because I know Japanese or anything. It's only because I've seen a lot of fan art from Japanese talented artists.
And May 9th is
5-9 on there.
Yeah, May 9th is Goku Day.
Piccolo Day.
Also Piccolo Day. All right.
I just had it upside down. The 6 was clearly
exactly.
You're right. I should have known.
Wait. Go back. What is the countdown? So they really counted down from 59 days before the movie came out? Like, what was the countdown about?
Just talking about the characters that are going to show up in the movie. And
but I remember it. I don't remember it being that long
at all. Like, was this like just a webpage you go to, and then there's Bulma sitting there, and
it was just a blog, so it was just written words, but written as if she was talking about these things.
Oh, okay.
So. Number 2. What is the tune that Krillin uses for his phone ringtone?
Ding, 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 ding.
All right, AJ, let's hear it.
It is We Are from One Piece.
That's correct.
That was so awesome, yeah.
I'm sorry I don't have a tiebreaker question, so you two will just have to know that you are equals, much like Goku and Vegeta are equivalent fighters.
As someone who doesn't watch One Piece but adores that We Are song, that was such like a pleasant, like, oh, I get it. It was such a moment for me in my head.
Oh, it's so good. Well, that's kind of the end of our show. AJ, thank you so much for joining us. It was so fun to talk about this movie and you about the cut. It was so fun.
It's finally nice to properly meet you because I've just seen your name you're out and about, but in my...
Likewise, big fan of the AMVs.
Oh, dude, thank you. That's awesome. I didn't even know you watched them.
I am so dumb, right? About halfway through this podcast, I made the connection between your name and your username. I was like, oh.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, I've binged them all. I think they're fucking fantastic.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. That's so awesome. Well, likewise, I've seen your YouTube videos back in the day, and yeah, just I was punching myself why is this guy so good at these videos? Who the hell is this guy?
My inflated ego, it keeps growing.
It's so nice to bring everybody together, and it's so nice that nobody says anything about how well I draw or anything.
I was just gonna say, let's not say anything about Randy. It's and then there's Randy.
You are a beautiful man with beautiful art.
And
a great
thank you.
Podcast host.
I didn't have to fish for that at all.
At all. there was one
this
question.
Is the power of editing. You can just make it seem like that was 100%
totally, yeah.
natural.
Let's just like get a blank slate. We're just like we're both like, yeah, Randy is awesome. All right, and then just
that. I've got an anti-sarcasm filter that I can use in audio editing. It's really great. Yeah.
Oh hell yeah!
I wish.
There's one question I had for AJ about this movie before. I keep forgetting to bring it up, but like, wasn't there like 2 versions of this movie that released, or am I crazy? Because I feel like the Trunks flashback scene in the beginning wasn't in the original movie, or am I just dumb?
So there, do you mean like the official stuff?
The official, yeah, not the supercut, just like the official. I feel like in the original version.
There was a TV broadcast for Resurrection F that aired during the Future Trunks arc of Super, and as like a tie-in promotional thing, they did this like, what was it, like 15, 20 minutes or something of just like Trunks reading a book, and then they reanimated some of the original Freeza arc. And yeah, like it was weird because I think, because obviously Battle of Gods had its extended version, which debuted on TV. And so when they announced that there was going to be this new extended Resurrection F cut, people were like, oh, are they going to like add more? Nope. It was just a pointless like cross promo.
But it was just like the thing. Trunks. Yeah. But boom, I told you, Randy, I knew there was a different kind of like TV broadcast version. That Trunks scene, I remember being a big deal. Like, oh, this wasn't in the original cut of the movie. So suck it, Randy.
I believe it was just a prologue, though. It wasn't actually anything added to the film. It was just like a 20-minute special beforehand.
Oh, it wasn't? I thought it was like sliced in between, like while Pilaf and them were like talking about them.
No, it was literally just this weird bit at the start that had no like connection to anything really.
Oh, damn, I was wrong. Suck it, Doug.
Suck it, Doug.
Suck it, Doug.
Yeah, I mean, it's technically a version because it was called.
AJ, you can't keep going back and forth. Me and Randy keep booming each other. Boom, you suck it, Randy.
I want to say it was technically called like Resurrection F, like Future Trunks Edition or something dumb like that.
Yes, that rings a bell.
It's yeah. Nobody ever includes it like online or anything. They just cut it separately.
But thank you everybody else for listening, especially everybody who tweeted in, letting us know your thoughts on the movie. We love interacting with you, keeping you in the conversation, talking about our favorite franchise in the world. If you ever want to tweet at us, tell us what you want to hear in future episodes, you can hit us up at WeGotAPod. You can also email us at WeGotAPod@gmail.com. Doug, you're going to go visit your mom for Thanksgiving, right? That's the perfect time for you to get your copies of the Super manga and finally read them.
I don't know about that because I have no place to store them in my house. There's not. My mom's house is a lot bigger than mine.
You got a car?
I'm not going to keep my manga or my figures. My figures are staying in my possession where I am. I'm not swapping them out for manga that I won't read.
Can I ask a question? What's the reason for not reading and being caught up on the Super manga?
One big reason is that they're not accessible to me because they're at my mother's house. So I don't go visit often enough to go get them. Second, I just don't really want to read Super until a lot of it's out. I don't like the whole social media aspect where everyone talks about every single individual chapter as they come out. I miss how I can just read through the entire arc and then we review the arc as a whole as opposed to just chapter by chapter and pick it apart. So
when was the last time you read?
I don't think I read any of it. I think I read volume 1 and I was like, this is enjoyable. Okay. I'm going to save it. And then that's like, I made that decision then like 5-6 years ago.
Well, because there is a note in this document that says, pressure Doug to read and catch up on the Super manga, I will now go on a little spiel. I 100% respect not wanting to engage with the fandom on Twitter. Mm-hmm. It's fucking awful.
Yeah.
But no, I would personally check out the stuff that corresponds to the TV series just to see how it's different. But I do wholeheartedly recommend the Morrow arc that takes place after is it after Broly or before Broly?
There's a 1-page thing of like, and Broly happened, and then the Morrow arc starts.
Oh yeah. Wow.
So I would recommend just reading that, and if you then want to stop and wait for the current arc to finish and then binge it that way, like I think that would be a good way. But personally, I enjoyed that arc a hell of a lot, and
really,
I know on the Kanzenshi podcast it was like an hour and a half of everyone just gushing about how much they enjoyed it, and there were little asterisks here and there, like okay, we didn't love this section and this bit was a bit meh, but by and large, it was a proper Dragon Ball arc for, I think most people felt like the first time in Super, and so
wow.
yeah, I think it would be worth reading.
That's way more convincing than you make it, Randy.
spiel.
That definitely makes me
Thanks.
intrigued.
You know, I've said the exact same thing before, but you won't listen to me, but our one-time guest. All right, fine.
So when you hear an outside source that you respect more.
You listen to a total stranger instead of one of your best friends. Got it. Okay.
Well, for me, it wasn't even like the toxicity of the fandom. I think it was just a personal, like, I don't want to... If I don't read the next chapter that comes out that day, I'll see spoilers about it the next day.
Sure.
So now in this way, everything is a spoiler, so I'll forget everything by the time I do decide to go and read it. Hopefully. Yeah. Besides purple Vegeta that I just can't get out of my head.
I look forward to you getting there one day, because I love talking about Dragon Ball with you, Doug, and I would love to talk about all the neat stuff that happens in that, not just on a every month basis of like, what happened in this chapter? Do we like this? We don't have the context of how that pays off later, but let's judge it right now.
That is fun for me, though. You can also blame my mother, too, because I've had all the manga volumes on my Amazon wish list for about like 3 years now. And I think she just buys me one like volume, because I put them all there because they're just like $10. I'm like, I don't ask for anything expensive. I'm just like, yeah, if you want to give me one or two of these, that's perfectly fine. But nope, sometimes one, sometimes none. So that's also holding me back from getting that collection.
I'm just going to buy you a cheap like Kindle Fire tablet and then pay for a monthly Shonen Jump subscription so you can just read it all.
That'll work too.
Oh, he says it'll work. Okay, we found our way in. We found the way. Well, thank you so much for helping to pressure him, AJ. That so long as we get there with him, I think that's important.
I'll be checking in.
Oh, good. No. Thank you also to Rifti Beats for letting us use his track Kakarot Theme Hip Hop Trap Remix. You can find it and other great tracks by Rifti on his SoundCloud. Thanks to sponsors for this show. AJ, do you want to plug anything that's going on?
No, I don't really do anything anymore. Like I just did the Crunchyroll Awards, but that's not out yet. So yeah, I don't think I have anything else. Like, if you want to follow me on Twitter, that's fine, but I don't really even tweet that much anymore. It's just, and I said at the start, it's exclusively because of Final Fantasy. If I'm not doing work for Mark, I am playing Final Fantasy. It is disgusting.
What server are you on where people can find you?
I am on the Ultras Primal.
All right.
So yeah, look for me in Limsa Liminza. I am the pink-haired cat girl, probably flirting with strangers. Nice. That's me.
That sounds like the AJ I know.
I think one of your your like not safe for work account on Twitter was one of the reasons why I had to like take a step back with Twitter and like, all right, let me delete a lot of these accounts that I've followed because of AJ's not safe for work account.
I'm so sorry.
That tree, that pyramid just like grew from you to like I needed to stop because I couldn't access Twitter in public anymore.
I've long given up. It's just a risk every time I pull my phone out now. I'm like,
it's a thrill.
I gotta be ready to just scroll really fast if I'm like slowly going down. So I'm like, oh, nope. Let's just jump with it real quick. Phew.
The worst is when you like scroll past it real quick and then you just stop at another one. Like, oh no.
I wasn't just looking for the good stuff, person looking over my shoulder, I swear. Doug, what's up with you? Where can people find you?
I'm Jabaz Doug on Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok sometimes.
Heck yeah. And you can find me at Saber_Breaker. I guess I don't do too much on there either.
I don't really do anything on mine either. We're all a bunch of we do podcasts and that's it.
I pimp the show, and then sometimes when I've got the free time, I'll post drawings and stuff. But that's just how it is.
Nice.
So yeah, thank you. Subscribe to the show. Tell your friends. Post a review. It super helps us out. Take care out there. Enjoy any holiday you might be doing. I know that's
or have done at this point.
Right, yeah. I mean, Canadian Thanksgiving was last month, so hope that was fun. So yeah, take care, check you later, and get vaccinated.
Bye.
Bye.